When it gets back to me, I'll tell you again.
No worries, no worries. Well, I suppose now would be as good a time as any to welcome everybody to this edition of the Halcyon Show. My name's Lauren Wisely. I'm going to be your host for this episode, and on this edition, there's no easy way of saying this. I did a review. It wasn't positive, and the developer called me out, and he said, "What the hell? Why are you?" No, he didn't really say that, but what he said was, "Dude, I appreciated the video. Let's talk." We sat down, we talked. I loved the conversation. I loved his concept. I want to speak to this guy more about what his concept is, what his plans are. So, without further ado, I want to throw over to the gentleman. Introduce yourself to the people. What is your name and what do you do?
Hey, Lauren. My name is Amorim, and I'm one of the developers for Cruz Brothers and founder of the DCF Studios. I loved your review, even though you are a little uh, hater about it. And but the way you approach it, it was really funny. And as I mentioned to you before, it's through criticism that we can grow as developers. So thank you for your critics, and that's what brought us here to talk. So great, it was a great video. End up
Well,
in this situation.
indeed. Well, here's the thing. Here's how I pitch this to you, just so everyone understands what we're doing here. I said, look, I don't like to be critical for the sake of being critical. I always like to look on the upside. I also like to promote good ideas, and I'd like to promote good developers. Even if I don't like an aspect of a game, I always like to see the good, and I always want to appreciate the good that goes into making a game. And it was, again, I'll say this again, like I said in the review, I appreciated how much depth and how much thought went into making everything about the game up to a certain point. But I wanted to go back to Cruz Brothers because I wanted to give you an opportunity to say, look, here's what maybe you would have missed. Here's some of the things that I think are cool. Here's some of the things that went into making this that I think people would like to know because they need to understand what it took. And you were kind enough, and again, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because it's very rare that you give a negative review and a developer is going to take that on board. Most developers are just going to take it personally and say, well, he's wrong and he doesn't know what he's talking about and blah, blah, blah. But by the same token, I'm willing to admit that as a reviewer, I can be hasty, I can make rash decisions, I can maybe speak out of turn. So I feel like this is a good opportunity for both of us to kind of touch base on a game that I admit has potential, but that I criticised, and that you obviously have a lot of faith in, and you have a lot of pride in, and I want to kind of show off the game. So we've got some Let's Play footage here that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk over, we're going to show you some stuff, and I just want you to really give people, well, in a game about fighting, handily enough, I want you to show us the ropes. I want you to show us everything I want you to show us everything. I want to see it. I want to see all the good stuff. So I think we should dive right in. So as you're seeing now, you're seeing the Cruz Brothers title screen. And I guess I'm going to hand over the reins, and we're going to go through this now. So, what do you want to start us off with here?
Yeah, let's go move forward with the going towards seeing all the features of the game. We recorded this straightforward. This is the Xbox version, and the video will start straight into a fight, just to give you a first look of the fight, of the fighting as an overall, in its mechanics. And if I remember correctly, I tried to beat the hell out of the opponent to show you that we can connect combos and connect specials and supers and etc. in this first fight. And then I address it in a slow pace, each feature, to explain what you may have missed in your previous video. That video made you our favorite hater, so my favorite hater. But as I told you, people who doesn't take criticism, at least hear the critic, it's missing out, because it was through criticism that we were able to do a better fighting game. It's not maybe it's not a AAA kind of fighting game yet. It's an indie fighting game, but it is way better than the first version that we released. Initially only on PS4 and Steam, due to the critics. If we haven't heard the critics, and our posture was, oh, these guys are wrong, and forget about what they're saying. Let's just look at the compliments. You will never grow and never improve the game. I won't say it's easy to get criticized for something you work for so long and you're definitely involved personally in it. It hurts, especially the first times. So if there is any aspiring developer or beginner developer out there, get ready for the haters. They are coming, and they are good for you. Remember that. They are good for you. They will make you a better developer. And that's for sure. It won't feel
100%.
good, but but in the end, it will be the best thing ever happened to you. If you remember the line of a movie called Whiplash, and this is a spoiler of the movie, but it's a small one. In the end, the teacher tells the student musician that the worst sentence in the English language is "good job." To tell someone, "Oh, good job." If you did that and play the game and tell in the end, "Oh, DCF Studios, good job," we wouldn't have anything to improve, and we will think, "Oh, okay, we did a good job," and then it you will not be watching this game right now. You will be watching the previous version that definitely could had some improvements. So what I mean is, thank you for the critics, and thank you for being such a nice guy at our previous conversation, as you're being now. And that's what made me also decide to move forward with this podcast. It's really special to us to have someone interested in knowing better about the game and all the elements that went through making the game and etc.
Mm.
So yeah, thank you for having us in your channel. It's really really
My
special.
pleasure.
Even though
My pleasure.
you
My
are
pleasure.
our favorite hater, not favorite fan. Just kidding.
It's all in good fun, mate. It's all in good fun. Well, again, I loved having the conversation with you originally. I really wanted another opportunity to talk about the game, and we're obviously as we're seeing some of the gameplay footage here. Again, I wanted you to have an opportunity to really go into some detail about some of the things that you think are good, some of the things that you think are worth talking about that other. Again, reviewers like me might have spent time fixating on certain things, but then not giving credit and time to other things. So as we're watching this now, we're
Yep.
watching the two competitors line up with each other, and we're seeing some power elements, we're seeing some teleportation. Walk us through what we're seeing here.
Yeah, well, as I said, the two first fights just jumped right into getting fight straightforward. I was playing with the guy with the gun, and as you can see, they are in MMA. Oh, this is the screen. So much many people miss about explaining the combos and the characters' attributes and etc. And that makes a difference in the fight. And as you can see, they are on a MMA ring. That happens when you play the arcade mode that we call King of the Hill. And in this mode, you can select the guys with guns and things that wouldn't be allowed on the MMA fighting ring. And so it's kind of weird to have them there, but we randomize the stage, and that happens. So, but these guys are the villains of the game. That's why they have guns. And when you fight them in the story mode, you fight them in the streets. So that having guns and etc. makes sense. And when you get to those stages of MMA, the clothing adapts to what would be MMA official clothing. This is why one of the characters, Felipe Cruz, is an MMA fighter in Brazil, and he owns all the belts of his weight class. And to homage him, we added this mode that is championships in MMA arenas, But in that, when you go to that game mode, you cannot choose those guys with the guns. There are three. The characters are divided by teams of three, and
Hmm.
those with guns that are the bad guys you cannot choose in the mode. I think it's too fast to me to read, but it's a mode where you get the MMA fights.
Right,
So
gotcha.
now I went to sparring, which is our practicing mode, and I will go through each movement, specific movement that will make a difference into the fight, and that people may miss, or maybe doing videos. Sometimes we rush out to speak and play it at the same time. It's too much to take attention on the minor details, right? So
Indeed,
here you
yeah.
go. Let's see. Lord, I'm getting a little bit of delay on the screen, so I might
That's no problem.
miss something.
We should clue people in that this is a podcast. There's going to be technical difficulties. There's a bit of a delay. Hey, don't be a dick about it. So there we go.
Yeah.
We dealt with that now. All good. So what do we got here?
Okay, so now I'm just showing again the movie list option, and how different this guy moves from the other ones. And he does has dashes because this was based on Olympic boxing, and Olympic boxing is all about movementation on the ring. And this guy has aggressive dashes, so he causes damages to the other player. When he's blinking white, as he did, he's in the dodge motion mode, which makes him able to dodge any attack and instantly reply. What he cannot do when he's blocking. So dodging, motion dodge, and blocking is different because you can hit back. It's like a counter attack that you do on purpose, but
Mm-hmm.
it will drain your stamina, so you can get a punch and then get dizzy, or use it too much and then get dizzy, right? And then we have a random critical damage. This is because the game is based on boxing elements, and sometimes the punch just hits you in the chin, and you get more damage. Or in reality, you will fall down, right? But in the game,
Happens all the
we
time. Yeah.
give more damage, yeah, to the player.
So what we got?
Yeah, I got. Oh, so I got the that guy is a secret fighter. You go to Microsoft and select it with I think in Xbox is X and the PlayStation is Square. That's just an achievement.
Mm.
Have I got the buttons correct for the Xbox? One interesting thing about this fighter on the left, I never mentioned this because I didn't want it to advertise
Sure.
this situation, but he's a friend of mine who died from cancer, and we did a homage to him, making a fighter of him. I was really scared of his mother didn't enjoy me doing that because it's a violent game, but she
Mm.
loved it so much, so I'm like feel comfortable talking about it. And during his procedure of going through cancer, he lost his leg. That's why this character now in this version has a mechanical leg. He's one of the bosses of
Oh
the game in
wow.
the story mode. Yeah, and also continuing. Oh, you can see that we unlocked achievement because in a couple of stages, specific characters become mayhems of death. This is a character that comes from the DCFU, the DCF gaming universe that we created. You will notice on the top that his team now is called Ella's Mayhem, because Ella is the goddess of death in our universe, and when the fighter when a person can make a pact with her to become a mayhem. So now he's mayhem of death, and there is I believe six fighters that have this attribute. and this happens on two stages, or the last two MMA championships.
Hmm.
Uh, they are all achievements that you should find. And as you can see, his power become different from the original Miguel D. It becomes green. The original is bluish and yellow. So this is an element of the DCFU embedded in the achievements and variations of some characters.
Where did some of the inspirations for some of the characters come from? You mentioned there that one of them was a real life, known to you in sad story, and a really touching sort of tribute that you've put in there, and a nice little nod to him. But aside from that, do you have any inspirations for characters that go beyond, other fictional character or real life people that maybe influence some of the characters?
Yeah. We had these are the DCFU cards that explain all about the universe I spoke about, and you must unlock them through the championships. And about the fighters that were inspired in real life. The game started with I trained with Marcos Luz, who is a well-respected boxing coach in Brazil, and he trains guys like Jose Aldo and some other. He helps to train those guys, and his main fighters are Felipe and Igor, who has a lot of achievements as fighters in Brazil. So the game started with them as a boxing game, and then grow to a broader game with fantasy in it and submerge it into our universe. Here you can see that I unlock it with a trick, all the cards, and that explains the mayhems and explains how humans came to be. But coming back to the inspirational, the real fighters are Marcos Luz, Felipe Cruz, and Igor Cruz, Gabriel Ribeiro from the Academy, Delfim Academy, and Claudio Coelho, who is the reference for boxing in Brazil. He is worldwide known, and his academy is Nobriarte. Both gyms are also stages on the game, and they look exactly the same as the original gym, especially Delfim, because in Delfim we could manage to keep the proportions right. Nobriarte, we just had to make things a little bigger so it wouldn't be too tight to fight.
Right.
Uh, but but these are the real aspects in the game, and also the story about how Marcos met Cruz Brothers is not exactly how it's shown, but the way they entered the fighting world was through Marcos, so that's also real. The rest of it is all fictional and was created by a friend of mine, Thiago Coelho, who helped me to wrote and link the dots of all the elements in the game through in the for the story mode, right?
Excellent. I want to come back to the story and the inspiration behind the universe in a second, but let's take some more look at some of the fighting. So, what are some of the mechanics that go into the fighting that maybe distinguish it from other titles? So you mentioned combinations. You mentioned the way that they're implemented.
Yeah, you can see. Oh, I always have to go back to the to this screen because I don't didn't remember all the their movimentation, right? But as you can saw when you were speaking, the guy punching himself in the face, the right caveiro, and that's to avoid button smashing because and that also happens during the boxing match. The fighting mechanics was based on Olympic boxing, but not limited to clearly. And this happens a lot. People punch themselves in the face. I believe if you search on YouTube, you will see people knocking themselves out with their own punch. So we use that to as a way so people don't get like button smashing all the time and think that they're going to get away with it because they won't. Uh, Punching yourself in the face in the game, it's a minor error, but if you do that in a long combo, you will fall down and you will have much more opening for your opponent to punch you to hit you back. So this was one of the critics you made in your previous video about it seems button smashy, but we worked for a year to make this more complex and concise in terms of you must follow the character's skills and abilities. Unless you, if you don't do that, you will get punished by falling. You saw the guy also falling in the ground and hitting his own face, and etc.
Was that important to you to have a combat mechanic that isn't just about just throwing frantically at opponents? You need to consider your attacks. You need to have counters. You need to have a certain penalty mechanic for people that do spam attacks. Was that important for you?
Yeah, yes, we can address, for example, counters specifically, because in boxing there's a lot of moves that are counter attacks, where you dodge or move the direction of the opponent punch and hit him back. So there's a team that is specialized in counter attacks. Uh, by chance is the guy who's fighting on the right now. It's Claudio Coelho that I mentioned it to be the highest reference in boxing in Brazil. And his moves, special moves, and etc. usually have a counter before he attacks. So yes, it was really important to have those in the game because we were trying to mimic Olympic boxing. That's why you have dash a lot to control distance of your opponent, and that's why the characters don't jump because the rules of the fighting mechanics are based on Olympic boxing. So we tried to mimic, but we didn't want it to look realistic because this was supposed to be not a simulation but a fun fighting game. And after we started as just a boxing game, we added things you see right now, superpowers and other fantastic elements into the game.
How hard was it
Well,
to
for instance,
amalgamate
now when you see the
the
guy
two?
blinking white, sorry, I didn't get you there.
How hard was it to amalgamate the two styles? So because I know a little bit about boxing, and I mean a little bit, a teeny tiny incy wincy little bit, and I know how technical it is. I know the subtle nuances. I know how taxing it is cardiovascular wise. I know that there are so many different techniques and methods that go into it. And then obviously I'm a big fan of fantasy. I'm a massive fan of the idea of imbuing people with abilities that make things a bit more special. They make the player feel special when they take control of the character. So was it hard to build a game mechanic that was satisfying in both senses to you?
Yeah, man, that was really hard, especially because when we started this project, I was the person responsible for all the animations and to build the fight mechanics, and I never had coded before in my life, so I learned how to code through this game. And there are 23 characters, so you can imagine how hard it is for a first-time coder to balance it out and also keep the solid foundation of boxing and moving towards a fantastic adding fantastic elements. Uh, Something we changed that is no longer based on boxing is that you can hit your opponent in the air. You just saw Kapstovieski hit the guy in the ground and catch him in the air. That's common in fighting
Yeah.
games, and it wasn't present in the first version. That was a combination of combo and super special moves. Uh, so it was hard because in the early stages it was hard because it is hard, but especially because in the early stages doing that I was alone and taking care of other aspects. But when more people came together to help build this game, especially my associate Glauco Bellini, that left me much more time to think about each character. It was still hard, extremely hard, but took a lot of pressure out to focus on building better animations, better movement, and one element that I noticed, it was an error from the first version, is that I took Marcus Luz and Igor Cruz and I filmed them in side scroll doing some punches so I can use it as reference.
Right. Okay.
But I tried to keep too much track into the real move, which is bad for animation. Animation is more beautiful when it's exaggerated uh, and and that felt wrong when you played the first version.
Sure.
So
Sure.
in this version, that the Combat School Edition, you'll notice that we're not following that close to reality for getting hit animations and even for the punches. You may not feel that, but if you compare versions, you will see that's a huge difference. And as you can see again, the guy got the other one in the air. That's something out of the boxing rules. But we went a little far from that foundation to with the single focus of making a fun game, a more entertaining experience.
What do you think, in your opinion, your fighting game does better than other fighting games? Again, to kind of go back to what you try to incorporate in with the realism of boxing, but the fantastical nature of the universe you're building. What were you trying to? What were you trying to make better than anybody else, and that you feel you really did?
Well, to state that we really did, it's I don't know. You didn't like it,
In your opinion,
at
I mean,
least at
again,
the
you're
first
you're
sight,
allowed to have
right?
your opinion. It's cool.
So yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say we actually did, but we tried to make something different because what fun would it be if we delivered the same product everybody sees in other titles that are already in the market? So that's why we tried to do something extremely different. Not a simulation of boxing, not a classic arcade fighting game, but with elements of both. Um in my opinion, this specific version, we succeeded at least in merging the two worlds in the fight mechanics. But that's a personal opinion. You may enjoy it, you may not enjoy it, and you are entitled to have your own opinion. It might be I don't like it, but after the release of the Xbox One, we got much more positive reviews than negative ones. So I could say state we succeeded on improving the game at least, and making a better merge of these two worlds. We can improve this forever. So uh, there will always be something to make it better, right? So we cannot state we are done. This is what it is. But at the same time, I'm really comfortable with this version. I'm really happy with the results, especially the positive feedbacks. Even though we have a lot of critics, everybody does. It's normal, and as I said in the beginning, that's how we can improve. If not for this game, for the next ones.
With the combat mechanics being my main source of gripes, what did you and you mentioned how hard it was to try and put together a fighting game when it was your first attempt at a game in general. What did you look at in terms of other fighting games and how to implement your own style? What were some of the things that you looked at in terms of inspiration or maybe guidance on how to put together your own mechanics? Because I will admit, by the way, as much as I might have criticised them, they do feel unique. They don't feel like any other game mechanic that I've played in recent memory. So what went into helping construct it all?
Well, I am a big fan of Mortal Kombat, so was my main inspiration for this title, for the previous one, the one I mentioned in One Battle Arena, and To make this version, I started to study other titles that I don't play much, such as Street Fighter and other titles, and I noticed complete difference between them. So I will say that the most influence we have is Mortal Kombat because I've been a player of that title for my whole life. So it was embedded in me to do something similar, but not to copy. As I said, we wanted something original. So that would be our main reference. Also, some elements of Dragon Ball, and mainly elements from
Nice,
movies.
nice.
For example, this stage is the Lou Tavern from the Fight Club. If you get the movie, if you see the movie again, you will notice that it's similar. Of course, it's not a copy; it's referenced to, but it's the Lou Tavern where the Fight Club started. And this team, that is the team of this stage, is called the Boxing Club. And the two characters are actually the same person. It's a guy with double personality, and right, just like the movie.
Yes,
So we
indeed.
had a
Yep.
lot of inspirations from movies as well. I love movies a lot. All of the crew watches a lot of movies, so we get references from not only games but other medias as well. You will see this guy is the guy with the cigarette in his mouth. I think it's one of the fights I recorded. Is it's with him.
As far as the game's criticisms go, then, what were some of the things that you took away in terms of how to address some of the criticisms that you got? Because I understand that one of the hardest things to do with criticism is, especially when it's not very constructive, let's say, when it's just moaning or complaining, which we talked about off air, it's hard because then you've got to go, right, well, how do I address that? So, in your opinion, what would you do in upcoming releases or other titles, or maybe a second installment of Cruz Brothers, to refine it and hone it even more than what you've tried to do in your first attempt? What would you want to address in your mind?
Well, the next titles, at least for now, won't be combat modes. But if we do a combat game again, and my guess is that we will probably do, I will address to have the mechanics more complex, add the jumping and add other classic elements that make this almost a chess match. What is actually the actual a real fight is a match. You
Of
can see
course, yeah.
that in jiu-jitsu a lot because it has a slower pace. So there are some moves that you do to make your opponent do that, and then you get him and choke him down or something like that. And boxing too have that. You like leave your face open so the guy throws a punch and you get him in some way. So bring that, and you see that in the fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. So that will be some of the core changes I will do to a combat genre to bring way more strategy, and that's what we try to do with this update, the Combat School Edition, adding way more strategy and elements and states of the opponent and the fighters that can be defensive, aggressive, and etc. Oh, this take is
How
from
much?
the
Sorry, go
it's
ahead. No,
a
sorry.
small take from the this is a small take from the story mode, and it's the I think it's the first. It's the end of the first chapter where Ryan dies, and that's why Ryan becomes. This is canonic. He becomes the Mayhem because he goes and do a pact with that goddess I mentioned it, and you will see that reading the you link that elements if you read the DCFU cards.
Indeed. I mean, the question I was going to ask there, because it popped up, is the story and the all of the, because again, I must appreciate that it must have taken an age to try and get everything together, collate it, make sense.
Yep.
make it entertaining, get the characters right, understand the direction of the characters, the motivation of the characters, how they all feed into this universe. How hard was that to put together? How hard was it to amalgamate all of that together?
Well, we first started with, as I said, with the Cruz Brothers. Their story is that the real story is that they met Marcus and Felipe. It's a funny story. Felipe went to Marcus' gym way back. I don't know how old he was. I think he was a kid, and he told him, "Hey, I want to be a MMA champion." Like the first day, a kid came and he left, and then they started to build a relationship. Then the brother came along, the Igor, and they become what they became in boxing and MMA. So to link that to a fantastic story, this was done by me and by my friend Thiago Coelho, and he linked all the elements. For instance, we previously did the fighters and the stages, and then we did build it a story from it. So we had to link all the elements towards something that made sense, right? So they start at the boxing club that is a reference for Fighting Club, the movie, and then Marcus was there for some reason, and etc. etc. So it was the process of creating things is really messy. You can search for. There's a good book on that about the Pixar. It's called Creativity Inc. And in that book, you see how messy it is for them to get to the final and refined version of their movies. And so, if you're an aspirational developer and you're developing a game and you're thinking, "Oh man, I have no idea what I'm doing," don't be surprised, man, because the biggest guys don't have any idea of what they're doing during the process of creation. So it's a messy process. For example, Coelho, who was the writer for the script, came with the idea of the Tresor having a gun and having a ring that he could use because it was like a status inside the bikers gang. So when he said that, I thought, oh man, come on. So this guy must have a gun during gameplay. That's when we added guns to the gameplay, and we added to the Tresor the rings, the knuckles with the rings. So the story creation influenced the gameplay the same way the gameplay deeply influenced the story because characters and elements were built at first. Uh, some other we use it a lot of references to because we are passionate about a lot of movies. For example, in the United States, we have a lot of backyard boxing matches. There's a guy really famous about that, Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo
And
Slice,
there's a
yep.
movie, yeah, and there was a movie on Netflix that addressed that situation, and told a story about that scenario, right? And that's chapter 5, I guess, where the brothers go to a backyard brother match, and then their fight exploded on the internet, and then they get starting famous. So all I'm saying is that you can see the story build itself through some elements that were there and through the references we had. You can see here that what I mentioned about the fighter being banned of the career mode, the guys with guns. You cannot select them.
Right,
Just
gotcha.
jumping in because we are seeing that on screen. But getting back to the story, it was a really messy process. It was our first time actually creating a full story for a game. So, but we did that naturally, being messy and changing things, and we do that up to this day. But now we know that it is the process. Now, sometimes, often we are going towards a direction and somebody says, "Oh, this happened to Bunny Battle Nemesis, the one we are working, just happened last week." Well, one of our main illustrators match, he said, "Hey man, I think to a hack and slash, the dash shouldn't be double tapping. should be pressing like RB, L1, something like that, will make more sense. And from that comment he made, we went and made a 2D version of the Assassin's Creed crawling feature. You know, when you hold some button and the characters start crawling all the stage elements and etc. We did that in a, of course, a small scope, but to our game. But that came from a comment of a dash movement. So you see
Okay.
how ideas grow, and they go around, and then they land on something completely original, maybe or maybe not with the original idea. And that's how was the process to create this story. It was made instinctively that way. But nowadays, this is our procedure, official procedure. We even have a board detailing that states like the original idea, then the feedbacks, and then everything goes south and gets crazy, and then we land with the final idea. And we know we are deeply aware of that, and that is one of the reasons I don't uh, go raging against hate. Not I won't say haters, but against critics, because maybe that idea will happen. That will happen to his idea. You know, you gave me an idea to prove how we explain to the audience all of that universe we are embedding Cruz Brothers in, and I loved it, and I will definitely use it to improve our product and how we present it to the audience. So if my posture was to just hate you back, that wouldn't happen. So the creative process is really really messy, man. Really really messy, and it's actually fun. This is the fun part of the job, to have the ideas and oh man, let's do this and that. Oh okay, and then you have the work for like I wake up every day 5 or 6 a.m. My associate does too. Some people are more night owls, but I work better in the morning.
Sure.
So I wake up usually really excited to 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 build what we had, the ideas we had in the previous day or whatnot. So yeah, it's a messy process. A long answer to your question about the story, but I could not not say that that goes for the gameplay and the game as an overall project. It's all linked it together. You cannot just take a piece of it like the story and now this is what you're going to do with the story and now this is what you're going to do with the gameplay. No, the things must merge and they merge naturally.
Well, taking what you've learned from this game and implementing it forward, what do you think the lessons are from this game that you think are going to, even if the games aren't fighting games which you've referenced, what do you think you're going to factor in terms of the presentation or the storytelling or anything that you've seen criticism of in this game that you think, maybe that's made me rethink where I'd want to take the game had I not had that criticism. Is there anything like that, or is it more the criticisms are just leveled at things that you think, oh, okay, well, fair enough, but we're not going to have that problem in the future installments?
Yeah, I believe we can continue speaking about the story because we didn't mention at all in the story about superpowers or any element fantastical elements. And this may be it was something I guess you mentioned it, and this maybe was a bad decision. It was on purpose because we wanted to this be natural to those characters, right? They're focusing on fighting, on improving their career, and they have superpowers and they can throw punches. They don't have to keep explaining all the time, such as in usually anime movies are like that. Oh, the guy's going to do that and do this, and now he's doing that because of that. And I wanted to avoid that to make seem natural that they have superpowers, but at the same time it may mislead some players, or maybe some made the experience confused. The only part you see something going on is when Azazel is fighting Felipe, and he start to get on fire, flaming up. But nobody mentioned it. Oh, Azazel has this power of throwing fireballs. Actually,
Mm.
Marcus say to Felipe to look out for his reach before the fight. These are boxing terms, um, but this was done on purpose. So maybe for future, maybe no, for future titles, we won't make the same mistake. We will definitely address important elements and aspects, so everything gets concise and clear for every player. Because each person has its own rhythm to get things, to understand things, to link things, to get to even dig deeper in things. Because if you dig into the cards, you may start to understand what's happening, why you have superpowers. The goal it was that you understand the fully, but it's not in the story mode. So this is something I believe we could address better in future titles, and we are definitely doing that and working in them with that in mind.
One last question as far as Cruz Brothers is
Oh,
concerned,
by
because
the
you
way,
guys, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no. By the way, this is the Delphine Academy. If I send you a picture of that, it's exactly the same. This is something I'm really proud of. This is Delphine Academy, so this is really cool. And Gabriel Ribeiro is the owner, so he's fighting against Kobe Kent. Kobe Kent is a fictional character, and that's one of the elements that are real in the game. Just to point
Nice.
out.
No, that's a lovely little touch. The last question I guess I have as far as the gameplay is concerned is what do you think some of the things are key to remember when playing Cruz Brothers? So what are some of the methodologies in terms of, like with Tekken, for instance, if I was advising someone how to play, my first piece of advice would be pick a character, hone them, because each character has a distinct feel, combo style, where you implement their combat, heaviness, speed, yada yada yada. Same with Street Fighter, but only that the combinations are much more important. Tekken less so. With Cruz Brothers, what advice would you give to a gamer who's looking to become really good at the game?
Well, that advice also applies to Cruz Brothers. Pick a fighter so you can learn how to fight with him. We maintained the special moves the same. It's just down, forward, and square, triangle, A, B. But as far as combos goes, each character has its own. You can notice that even I, that also developed the game, had to go through the combo list to read what characters, what the characters did. But specifically for the game, I would advise to one focus your attention on the motion dodge to avoid opponent's attack, and start all your combos with the fast attack, which has the lowest frame rate. So you dodge the attack, counter attack with the fast attack, and then you do whatever you want. If you want to throw a special, for example, either dodge and attack with the fast attack, or attack with the fast attack and then use your special, because that will make sure you will land it. Um, and also keep in mind that dash is really important, because some special attacks are really aggressive in terms of the character going from point A to point B. And if you use the dodge motion or the dash, you can make them trip and fall, and then you can get them and hit them back. So focus on defense first, and do an active defense, defense to attack, not just block. Just blocking won't help you much. We will avoid you to get deeply hurt, but just blocking is not the way to defend in Cruz Brothers. The way to defend in Cruz Brothers is moving around with dash and using the motion dodge to hit back. Especially if you are smart enough and have the a small amount of time to hit back, so use the fast attack. Then you go move towards the longer combos that will do more damage. Oh, and also
Do you
try
have a
to
favorite?
combine combos
Sorry.
and specials possible. So, and in that aspect, we enter the factor you mentioned it. Know your fighter, because each fighter have a way to combine special and combos, and some special and combos won't fit together. So you have to learn from each fighter what to do. But that would be the core tip will be focus on the defense on that element I mentioned it.
Gotcha. Do you have a favorite character?
Oh man, it's hard to pick. The hardest one to fight against is Miguel D. This was by chance. He's extremely hard to fight against. I like Trey Sorrow a lot because I like the fact we added aggressive dash in his dash move. So when he dashes back, he uses the shotgun and he knocks out the opponents. And when he dashes forward, he uses his pistol. So he throws double tap in the face of the opponent, and then you can double tap him, switch sides, and punch him back. So definitely, he's my favorite character. That's why I pick him in the beginning of the video.
One last quick question then. With regards to the future, the extended universe, which we won't go into too much detail here, do you think that, because I think, again, we talked about this off air, do you think that this is a game that will get better when people have more of a grasp of the wider scope of the universe? Do you think it's one of those games that people will play now, enjoy for the fighting mechanics, but then go back and enjoy for the story and for the characterization of some of the characters you've got in the game?
That is our goal actually, to have people playing our games and then seeing, oh, I saw this on the other game, and then they go either buy the game or watch a video on YouTube and see either a character or an element of the universe that was in another game in the previous game, such as Cruz Brothers. We can give an example of the guy with the mask. He's Mayhem. This was deeply inspired in Spawn. That's why his power are green. And these guys died and made a pact with the devil, who is Hellella. And as I mentioned, Hellella is the protagonist, one of the protagonists of the Bunny Battle Nemesis, the next title. So if you only play Bunny Battle Nemesis and you see Cruz Brothers, you will notice that Hellella is there at some point. We are also using transmedia ways to tell people this tale. We recently released it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, a small web series of 5 episodes explaining the DCFU. And we call this season one of DCFU Explained, season one. And on season one, you will see all the elements that appear in Cruz Brothers and all the elements that will appear in the next games. So when they come out, if you rewatch it, you will see, oh, that is there, that is in Cruz Brothers. There's a chapter, the last chapter specifically for Mayhem. So if you want to learn in a way that you don't have to read a card, the DCF2 cards in Cruz Brothers, you can just watch the video and you will understand what this character means. So this is our company's mythology. We created that to make something rich and unique to our titles. It won't influence specific titles' direct tales and direct stories. It may or it may not. It won't influence the graphics. It won't influence the art style. It will only influence the elements that may be present here and there. For example, another title that we are working on is Tony and Clyde. And on Tony and Clyde, we don't mention anything about the universe, anything at all, because it's based on reality. They are robbers. There's mob. There are gangsters. So there doesn't make sense to tell about I don't know Alice Mayhem. Doesn't make sense. But I'll give you a spoiler. To become a Mayhem, you have to die and to make a pact with Hell Ella, right? There is a boss in Tony and Clyde who is the past the living person of the guy in the mask. So you will notice, you may or may not get that. We will give you a hint, but that in that game, this is as far as we will go, including the universe. But we won't go further than that because we will make it strange and weird because it's supposed to be a shooter. So we will be working that way, adding Easter eggs here and there, maybe influencing deeply the story or not. Uh, the thing in the end have to make sense, have to be rich in content, and have to reinforce the player to search for it, and then when he finds out there is more about it, get deeply involved in the project, in the game he's playing, and if he loves the game, it will improve what he already enjoyed.
Right. So I'm gonna do a little interlude here because this is where I'll use editing trickery to put this to the end of the actual podcast as opposed to the end of the first video. So apologies for switching gears here. So, well, I think that about covers everything.
Yeah,
So I guess that. Sorry, go ahead.
no,
So
sorry,
go ahead.
I kind of forgot you were going to like edit the video and I mentioned some things twice. Sorry, man. I don't know.
No. It's fine. It's no problem. Honestly,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no editing deadline with this. I just want to make sure we got everything because we've got a little out of sync, but that's not a problem because again, I'll have time to put it all together. But I just want to make sure that the number one thing that I always forget to do sometimes is to make sure I plug. So all I was going to say was I'm just going to lead back in. I'm going to put this little bit at the end, but all I'm literally going to ask you to do is, okay, so where can people find you on the socials? Where can people find the game? What have you got coming up? Yada, yada, yada. Just so that we can put that as a nice little tie up at the end of the last video, if that's cool.
Okay. Yeah,
All right,
you will
so
do the opening and I'll tell. Yep, and I'll tell the rest. That's it.
yeah. So I think that about
All
wraps
right.
everything up. So I guess the only question left to ask is where can people find you on the socials? What have you got coming up? And where can people find the games that you're producing? And do you have any websites or anything along those lines? What have you got for us?
Well, you can find us on studiosdcf.com or dcfstudios.com. There you have all the information for our social media, for our upcoming titles, the titles that are already in concept. Since we have a already well-built and based universe, we can state that we are working on this title next, even though we have like next titles upcoming. So you will find all of that in our website. Each game have its own Instagram, and you will find that through the website too. That's the best way to go to find us. Uh, or you can go directly to Instagram slash DCF Studios. Twitter as well slash DCF Studios.
That's beautiful. Listen, I think I speak for everyone when I want to say thank you for taking as much time as you did to explain what is in effect one of the most comprehensively designed backstories and art styles and implementations of a game concept I think I've ever heard from an indie developer. The level, and again, I mentioned this off camera, the level of ambition that's on display here is exceptional. So what I would say to people is this: go check out Cruz Brothers, see what you think. Listen to my review, listen to this podcast, but here's the thing: watch this space. Clearly, there's more to come in terms of the grander scope of the universe. There's clearly more to come in terms of game design because, as you mentioned, first attempt at a game, always going to be tricky. And for a first attempt, holy shit, what a first attempt. You know what I mean? Like go back and watch my first video on YouTube. It's a fucking disaster. I'd have killed for this kind of first attempt when I was starting off at YouTube. So I want to say thank you for taking as much time. Thank you for being a good sport about the review and taking for the spirit which is intended. And I hope people go and check out not only Cruz Brothers, but check out some of your other projects. Go and support them on social media. Go and support them on Steam and go and support them wherever you find the game available. And just thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Likewise, man. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come here and explain more with more details about both Cruz Brothers and both the universe elements. As I said, your video criticizing the game is also special to us because it's the only way we can improve as developers. And it was nice to reach you in the comments, so we ended up being here and talking about this. It was really a great experience. Thank you very much, and hope we do more of those. It was really fun.
100%. Let's do this down the line. But in the meantime, my name's been Lorne Risley. I'm the host of the Halcyon Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out some of the other content in the description below. Go check me out over at 2 Gaming, where the Cruz Brothers review lives. Go and check out Cruz Brothers, and we'll see you on the next episode.